I guess technically you open the first meeting.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good morning. Welcome to the Clinton County Council meeting for January 11th. Our first order of business is to reorganize. So may we have a nomination for president?
I follow the philosophy of if it ain't broke, don't fix it in my management style, and Alan's done a wonderful job leading us. I'm sure any of us are now, with our experience, capable, but I would like to nominate Alan to continue to lead the charge.
So Clark with the first, Mike with the second. Please raise your right hand if you agree. Look, I'm voting too. Alan?
All right.
Now president.
All right, thank you for the vote of confidence. So we need to move on then to the role of vice president. I'd open the floor for nominations for that role.
I'd like to nominate Clark, who's been doing a fine job, and just to keep continuing being there as the vice, the second.
Okay, I have a motion by Jeff to nominate Clark. Second by John. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 5-0 with Clark abstaining. Very good, thank you. Next item, approval of meeting minutes. We have two meetings in December to review minutes for. December 14th, the regular meeting, and then our cleanup meeting on the 28th. I know, Clark, you were reviewing those minutes a moment ago.
I would make a motion to approve the December 14th minutes as written.
I'll second.
I think I've got a motion by Clark and a second by Jake. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. And then for the 28th,
I'd also offer that same motion for the 28th. They look fine to me.
okay, a motion by Clark, a second by Mike. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 5-0. Jake abstaining on that one. Our regular monthly reports, beginning with, as always, Community Corrections, Brett Barton. Good morning.
This morning, we have 81 individuals on our program. We have 3 juveniles and 10 on the CTP program. I'm finishing up my annual report. I'm waiting on one financial component to finish that up before I bring it to my board. I'd be happy to answer any data questions, financial questions that you guys have on that. I will point out one piece of data, though, that what DOC likes us to do most of all is save them money. So by keeping 57 high-risk felons in our community, we did save the state $812,000 by not sending them to DOC. So that number stands out dramatically to DOC, and I'm very proud of that number. So I'll just share that with you guys. I'm also finishing up the JRAC report, and statutorily, Mike, I'll need about 10 minutes of your time, and Mark about 10 minutes of your time to get that finished up, and we'll put that to bed at our next advisory board meeting on that, too. So if you guys could give me a call or stop by the office, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Brett, I'm just curious, so I know that your funding is tied to a grade or a score that you get from the state. Does the savings we generate for the state count for part of that score?
They don't tell me that, but I make it very clear to them how much money we do save for a county our size. And we did get a nice bump last year in our.
Yeah.
our
Well, I
county,
wondered
so.
if those two things were linked. That's where exactly where I was
I'd
going.
I'd like to think it is, but they just do not tell us the funding formula, but I
Okay.
think that's a big component of it, so, sure.
Well, well done.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey,
Any
gentlemen, just
questions
get a
for-
hold of me, please, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, thanks.
I don't believe we have Nancy with us, but she did submit a report that it finalized the 2021 and updated that December figure. Again, just a really, really strong year, $10,527 in juvenile detention costs for the year. And that goes back to days, prior to my time on the council when that was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mike probably remembers that, so she's done a great job. All right, moving on to new business. You have in your packet a declaration of the fiscal body that we need to approve for Kirkland. You'll remember that Kirkland came to us last year, and they were moving forward with a debt service issue to do some improvements on their library. As they've gone through that process, one of the final steps is that they have signed a declaration of the fiscal body, or a declaration of the Kirkland Public Library Board, But that requires also the approval of a fiscal body, and we are the fiscal body that has to approve that. So you'll see, actually what we're doing is acknowledging, it says fiscal body, acknowledge it down there. It says acknowledges that the fiscal body is responsible for the binding review and approval of the library's budget under IC code when the conditions exist that require such binding review, which they do. So this is just the last step in their bonding process that we acknowledge that they're going through that process. We acknowledge that it will result in a debt service rate to the taxpayers who pay for the Kirkland Library Board and gives them the last step they need for their reporting. So I guess I'm, let's see, looks like I need a motion to approve, I guess that we acknowledge the declaration of the Kirkland Public Library and authorizing me to sign that form on behalf of the council.
I'd make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Jeff and a second by Jake that we do that. All those in favor, raise your right hand. That motion carries 6-0. Janet, if you'll help me remember to keep an original, that we can get that signed. Okay. Okay, next item, we had, in December, we had passed the salary ordinance for 2022 so that those things were in place for the first payroll. There's been a few minor corrections to that, but Janet, I'll let you share with the group what you were sharing with me there a moment ago.
Okay, most of these have to do, a couple of them are just mistakes when we were, and most of them have to do with just the hourly wage. Their salaries didn't change. The ones in the sheriff's department, we were unaware that some were 42 hours and some were 40, so we had to change that accordingly. All that did was change their hourly rate, didn't affect their salary. Nancy had gotten her final figures on her probation grant, her two funds, so she was able to give final figures on her salaries. So
Okay.
basically, that's the issues that were corrected.
You'll see that on the salary ordinance that you have, the change areas are highlighted, so if there's any of those that stick out to you that you want further explanation on, now's the time to ask.
I don't.
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve the amended salary ordinance for 2022.
Okay.
Second.
A motion by Clark, second by Jeff. Any last questions or needs for explanation? Okay. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0 to amend that ordinance. Okay, Renee. I saw Renee, there she is. 911 report. I always look forward to this.
Prior to the meeting, I went ahead and I think you all should have a packet. I went ahead and passed those out first, but as you know, I always like to come before the council and commissioners usually in January. So Commissioners Brewer and Timmons will get to hear this again next week. But I do like to come just to give you a review for us. There are some things that you know already, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to go back and review our 2021 statistics and highlights from Central Dispatch. So during 2021, we dispatched a total of 33,642 calls for service, and that includes police, fire, and EMS throughout the entire county. We did see an increase in our call volume of approximately 13% over 2020. We answered 40,263 administrative calls, as well as 14,716 911 calls, for a total of 54,979 during the 2021 year. As everyone's been well aware of, over the last several years, people are doing away with their landlines, their home phones, and going just strictly to wireless phones. I did run a report, and 3% of our total calls, 911 calls, were from residential. So we're at 88%. We had other lines, but 88% is our wireless total for 911 calls, and only 3% are residential lines. And then I also like to run a report because during several reporting, like with ISO for fire departments, that we have to assist reporting on. One of those is the PSAP answer time that they get, they check those stats. So I like to run that as well for us. So 98% of our the time, we answer 911 calls in 10 seconds or less. We continue to utilize our Texty, and as you know, Texty is a service provided by the statewide 911 board throughout Indiana, and that allows people to text 911. We sent out a total of 1,625 texts, and we received 79 texts to 911. We utilize it, as I've told you in the past, mainly for our 911 hang-ups from cell phones. So, but it is, again, another opportunity. People have another means of contacting us, whether they are the hearing impaired, if they are in a situation, domestic violence situation, where it's not safe for them to make that phone call, they are able to text 911. Our Nixle subscribers continue to slowly increase. We're over 9,000 text messages, people that are signed up for our text messages. I do want to say that Nixle encourages people to download the free Everbridge app. So a lot of people they feel like they're overwhelmed with text messages, and so many people have apps. So Nixle offers a free app. It's called Everbridge. And so instead of the texts, you can get our notifications through the app. So it's just another means. Nixle's kind of doing away, if some people are signed up for both emails and text messages, so if they are signed up for both, you will only get an email. So I'm encouraging people to go ahead and download that app as well, just to make sure that you can stay in the know of everything with all of our notifications. You know, we've had lots of construction messages, you know, over the last year, and we continue to have lots of constructions in Clinton County. So I just think it's really important for people to continue to sign up for those. So now just some highlights for the year. One of our first additions took place in January with Colleen Dillingham filling the position of Assistant Director. I cannot say enough about what she brings to the table. You know, she's been with our department for several years as a shift supervisor. She has really taken this position to heart, and she's grown so much in the last year. Her position was vital in bridging the gap between night shift and day shift. You know, they would get a lot of emails from me, you know, my night shift, they didn't see me. She's there. She's also able to do things when I am not there. She is able to bridge that gap with other departments so that if there's an issue in the evenings, she can take that. And she's done tremendous with that. I've been very pleased with that. And I think the night shifts as well have appreciated having that other go-to person as well in the evenings. It's been good for me. She's brought a new fresh look to things too. You know, it's good to have some other ideas. And so that's been a really blessing for me to have her in that position. At the end of February, our new CAD mapping was rolled out from our partnership with Crossroads GIS Solutions. The new mapping has been a vital link that we have needed for a very long time. I'm thankful for our relationship with Crossroads and look forward to continuing to work with them. It has definitely made an impact on us having accurate maps that we can rely on. It's, you know, crucial. Jake knows that as an officer. You know, it's crucial. It's especially helpful with our new employees, you know, when they're training to know the zones, to have accurate maps to rely on in our CAD system. As you all know, in April, our biggest obstacle of the year happened when the antenna on the Frankfurt Water Tower had to be removed due to the work at the site. We immediately began to look for a long-term solution, as we did not want anyone to have to go through what we did. It was a difficult several months, not just for our staff, but the responders as well. So we're thankful that the antenna being moved to the tower located at the sheriff's office will move us forward. If we were finally restored, October 15th was the day that the antenna was back in service. So that was a long several months. As you and the commissioners both know, in June, we came before both to seek approval to start the process replacing our soon-to-be outdated radio equipment. In the process, we had purchased 2 additional radio positions, and I believe I've told you both, when it was time for the installation, those 2 positions ended up being added to my office and Colleen's office. That immediately takes us to 6 full positions. The only thing Colleen and I are unable to do would be answer the phones in our office. So, I mean, as we're moving into severe weather, you know, with, hopefully we don't have any snow, but, you know, it just gets crazy. We can immediately utilize those other two positions. Colleen and I, we don't have to come out and grab a headset and log into the computers, which takes time. You know, we have multiple things to log into. We're already logged in our office. We can immediately start answering the radio if they get busy. So that's been a great, great tool and another additional asset to have. I just want to finish this with, we are blessed to have the staff that we do in dispatch. We have very dedicated individuals who truly care for this community, and they come to work day in and day out. This job is not for the weak, believe it or not, and it takes a special person to do this job. It is not for everyone. If you've not sat in the seat and taken those calls, you know, of the screaming people on the other end, you know, you don't know until you've been there. And we've got a great group of people in Central Dispatch. We had our final 2 hires started yesterday, so I look forward to them completing their training in the next few months and getting back up to full staff. So that ends my presentation there. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, any
As you'll see, I've, all of the reports that I ran, I've attached those for you to look at. And obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Questions?
No.
You know, Renee, there's a few of us in this room that can remember life pre-Central Dispatch and the process we went through to get this all in place. And I mean, wow, what an amazing difference.
Yes.
I'm really proud of what we've built. I'm
Yes,
proud
absolutely.
of what you all do. And I think, do you remember if somebody would call in, they'd have to be transferred here
Yes,
and there to get
yes.
something dispatched, and now, you know, to have 98% of the calls under 10 seconds?
Yes.
And I don't know if Greg's in the room. I'm gonna maybe. Oh, I'm gonna steal your thunder a little bit. I'm gonna jump in because there was an email that was going around. And
Let me start that.
You
out.
do it.
Can
you
I
do it.
start
Yeah,
that?
Yeah,
So
do that. 'cause
so I sent an email last
Yeah.
week to Alan as well as the commissioners, and I included Greg on that. So as everyone knows, the new East Side EMS building has been open now for probably since November-ish. And I know from my dispatchers, and last week we did have a very critical call, severe burn victim. I don't know the status of him, but that was in the East Side territory. That EMS paramedic unit was on scene in 6 minutes from the time the 911 call came in. We would have never had that if we did not have that East Side. And that's multiple calls that we've had since November. You know, that person was very critical. That person was lifelined. But to have a paramedic unit on scene in 6 minutes, that's amazing.
But that started with the dispatch getting the call out to EMS.
Yes.
I mean, those seconds and those
Those
minutes saved a
seconds.
life.
Yes.
And the point that I made in the email that was going around, and I want to say publicly, is that I think in particular, we see the world in budget numbers and budget books and tax rates and all that, and we don't see how that translates to a real benefit to the people of the county. And this is an example where a couple of investments, a couple of tax increases, to be
Yes,
honest,
yes. But this was
resulted
vital and
in such
necessary.
an improvement in service that we can directly point to lives being saved by that investment. So that's what I mean by, I always enjoy this report. It shows the impact that not only their work, our work, and making sure that the money was there to make it happen in the first place. So,
You know, in
thank you
addition
for-
to
thank
that,
you
my
for-
only other thing with that, you know, in public safety, people talk about resources, and they think of resources as being police officers, fire engines, ambulances. They don't think of dispatch as being a resource. You know, and we are a resource, you know, and everybody's EMD certified. So, you know, the dispatcher that took that call, the dispatcher that takes the call that's giving CPR instructions, that's a resource that is tied up until a first responder gets on that scene. You know, so that's going to free up one of our resources by being able to have EMS a little bit closer, because when we have those outer areas prior to the new EMS building, it was nothing for us to be on the phone, you know,
Yeah.
20 to 30 minutes, depending on weather conditions and where they were coming from, because we never know. You know, you can go from nothing to everything happening in a matter of seconds. And so I just wanted everybody to know, those that, if anybody even doubted the building of that East Side, that was I've been in favor of it from
And
the
I don't
word
want to
go.
bog the meeting down with a backpack.
No,
That's not-
no,
But I wanted to thank
it
you, I
was-
wanted to thank
It was
Greg.
necessary.
Your
It
leadership
was
and
needed.
your respective departments is what made that happen, so thank you. All right,
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
All right. Tim Dillingham and Laura Wellman, we have representing the employees. Some of those public safety employees.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we came before the council a few months ago, as well as the commissioners, to ask about the American Rescue Plan funding. And we were told at the time there'd be an update by the end of the year.
Yep.
Which we have not heard, so we're back to ask for an update on that.
Fair enough. You'll recall at that update, one of the things that we were waiting to hear about was on January 15th is when we have the repayment date for our bond anticipation notes. And what we were waiting on to hear was that we were waiting, actually, the distribution of funds from the Economic Development Administration for our $3 million grant. And if that didn't come in by the 15th, we may have had to have used those ARP funds to bridge that gap until such time that they came in. So it's kind of come down to the wire. That's the end of this week. And we're going to address the final solution to that later on in the additional appropriations. But we did get the first 75% of that money. So that narrowed our gap down to just under $700 and some thousand. And we do have enough money in our CEDAT fund to cover that, with the final closeout on those grant funds being later this spring, when the project is deemed officially complete. So the ARP funds are all available and eligible to be spent at however they're decided to be done. It's worth remembering and reminding that the ARP federal legislation itself calls for this. It's unique in that it requires both the commissioners and the council to work on that. It's not just an appropriation of the council. So there'll be a 10-member decision-making body for those. And we have scheduled our first ARP committee, which was established earlier in the year, which is Commissioner Brewer and council members Jeff and Clark and Allen. And we're going to meet on the 24th to begin that process of I guess, coming up with the list of eligible or prospective uses and start allocating the funds. So I'd say the ball started to roll. That's the update.
So to steal your words about investment and resources, I would just like to remind you that your employees are an important resource, and your
No doubt.
employees have been the frontline resource during this entire pandemic, and continue to be. I mean, we still have employees who are out with COVID now, who will continue to be out with COVID. Our call volume was up 13%. We're not fully staffed, so that's an extra strain on not only us, but the rest of the responders who are taking those calls. Their volume has also been up 13% throughout this pandemic. So I don't have an exact figure, but our medical calls drastically increased as well. So we're really doing the work for the community. I would like you to remember that your employees are your first resource.
It's certainly noted. It's certainly noted. Don't think that that's been forgotten. So, Tim, anything you'd like to add?
Just, I mean, is this leaning toward a yay or a nay, or are you afraid to
We
say that
honestly
at
haven't
this
talked
point?
about it yet. I mean, we will dive in deep. We've had our emails back and forth to set up the time that would work. I mean, literally, the first thing we've got to do is go through the list of eligible, or maybe it's not even eligible now. It's prospective uses of the money, and then we start allocating. So,
And we appreciate your due diligence,
yeah.
but, is there a mechanism of government that's different in these other counties? Because we're watching county after county allocate this money. and
Each county
some
has
of-
its own,
I know.
unique situation with, I mean, we're in the middle of a renovation of a government annex that not all counties would be into, for example. So we've got to take all of those things into account.
And I understand that, but that government annex would have taken place with or without ARP funds, in my belief.
Yeah, but the question is would it or would it have not taken place without a tax increase? And that's what we've got to try to figure out,
I just want to cabbage on what she said, and invest in the employees as much as you do in buildings, infrastructure, and we understand, we're not simple people. We understand why that's important for a county to build and grow. But I mean, Clinton County's been the same population for what, 50 years? We haven't, are we relatively the same population we were in 1969? I think we are. So I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reward the employees. Call them retention bonuses. That's what we've noticed other counties are calling them.
Okay?
Because the job market's changing. And we do have a lot of dependable employees here that that limits your liability through our professionalism and dedication. That we think about these things each day we do our jobs. Dispatchers, jail officers. I mean, if you would see what some of the jail officers go through every day. I mean, there's one there, I'm not gonna give a name obviously, but there's one we're changing diapers on every day. We have an inmate that they have to deal with. You know, that's just one example of what we deal with every day. So that's all we're asking for. I don't mean to be contentious, but
Not taken that way.
no, it's just that you would, you know, I'm not here with a tin cup saying, give us our money, but it just seems like this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I don't know if anybody else from our group wanted to speak or if they're.
Yeah,
I would like to.
yes, please.
Fiona Stidham, 17 years. And as they all stated, the COVID has obviously affected every single one of us. I personally was affected. Laura, as well as Renee and Colleen, had to step up and work that entire week while I went to a meet. What I can say is that in that 17 years, I've never asked for anything. You guys can say whatever, and you can think whatever, but without us, everything would fall apart. And I can say that actions speak louder than words, and this is the opportunity that you have to actually show your support for us as county employees, and I expect that from you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Rodney?
Come in and at least join the conversation, and I may try to just take a little bit of a different perspective. Again, I agree with what these folks say. I'm certain in each of your own minds, with all your challenges, you certainly see their point as well. From my perspective, first of all, I have a little smaller outfit, but we aren't so-called public safety, but we are part of public safety and health and medical. We've been on the front lines of this since the very get-go, except for probably EMS, who were transporting individuals before they even knew what they were transporting. I counted just this morning, and at current staffing, I have 6 single parents that are working in our staff. So throughout all of this, not only were they challenged to try to come in and do the duties that they are sworn to do, they are also trying to raise their children in this situation, as well as deal with, virtual schooling, challenges on trying to deal with that with limited amount of time off. We had several individuals who were, and myself included, afflicted with COVID during this period as well. I want to look at the mental health aspects since I'm public health. I can tell you from my side of things, this has taken a terrible toll on some of my staff as well as myself through this. Recovery, I'm not sure when it will occur. We're 2 years into this and I don't see an end to it yet. I'd like to say I do, but I do not. So I look at these folks who are still here, who could choose to leave at any point now. I'm struggling right now. I see offers for nursing folks to $15,000 a week pay right now, and I have to worry. Retention's still a worry for me. Maybe not this moment, but maybe certainly shortly after this. We're seeing a great amount of folks resign and leave their positions across the country. I think it's a testament to the folks that are here continuing to work with us and understanding the dangers that, that's a testament to their love for their community and their dedication to it. And as the gal said, I think they should at least see some consideration from the government as well, that's recognized. So from the mental health standpoint, we've got folks that are going to suffer for quite a while from this, much like some EMS folks who deal with on-scene situations all the time. This has been a slow motion train wreck that we've been through all this time. The other thing is there are several of us who have maybe a year or more of recovery time in our regular work to finally get caught up with this. So even when someone finally says we're done, several of us are still going to feel the impact for a year or more, getting back to the normal business that we try to do every day for the community. So I'd like to just bring those kind of ideas to light as well. Money doesn't solve all the problems of the world, but unfortunately in the governmental and in the business side of things, it seems to be the one thing that shows appreciation the most usually. So, and I appreciate your time. So.
Thank you, Rodney.
Thanks.
Thanks to all of you for taking the time to come today, and for those of you that did speak, we appreciate it very much. So we'll meet on the 24th, and we'll move after that. We'll keep you posted. Okay. Moving on then to the next item on the agenda, we go to cyber protection policy. Tim Elston's got some information for us. We've got a new consideration in today's world, and that is ransomware attackers and hackers, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem at local government levels. And so, Tim, you've got some new developments in that respect.
Yeah, this year during our renewal of our cyber protection policy, there's been some additional requests from the insurer that we have what's called multi-factor authentication as one of the pieces. I briefly looked at this last year, and just kind of based off the cost, I didn't immediately say this is maybe something we should jump towards, because there is a monthly cost that goes along with having this service. With this policy to basically give us protection if we were to get attacked and something happened to our systems, this gives us the ability to possibly pay the ransom for the decrypt key to get back into function if this is going to be a long-term problem that just can't be resolved by getting a backup back in place. Without doing this multi-factor, pretty much nobody is going to give you a policy that would give you any coverage in a cyber attack. So even with our insurance carrier, we were looking at a plan B that is a much less, it's not as good of a plan as having the separate one by itself. It's kind of included within our basic coverage that we do every year for just general protection. They still want multi-factor on certain devices that leave this building. So like laptops, devices like that people take home. We need to do things to basically try to protect those from possible cyber attacks. They weren't as restrictive of saying we need to do this on email within our network infrastructure, pretty much every device in the building as the main policy was requesting. With doing that, we're looking at roughly $36,000 a year cost to cover all of our email accounts. That's kind of where I started basing this number off of, because that is our largest amount of accounts we've got to protect. I think we have 319 employees, but somehow we have 500 email accounts. So that's where we roughly came up with $36,000 a year cost. There could potentially be some other cost involved, because we might have to buy some hardware tokens that actually support the actual physical devices that leave the building. And those are anywhere from $45 to $80, depending on which token we want to go with. So there could be, some upfront cost that isn't reoccurring, but other things that we've got to look at to try to better protect ourselves as a county from ransom attacks. If nothing else, if we're not going through and protecting every individual account, we probably should be looking at protecting the administrative accounts. Those potentially have the most damage to be able to affect our overall system, whereas a general user has a more confined space that they can actually affect on the system, whereas the administrators basically can go through the whole thing. So if nothing else, we might need to be looking at a smaller portion to try to better protect ourselves from something going on in the future to minimize our risk from a ransom attack coming in. For the most part, I would say our users have been pretty good over the last few years of just not opening up every email and every attachment to just increase our risk potential. But there still is that human factor that they get better and better every day of trying to fake you out on, oh, well, this is maybe something I should be looking at, and then the next thing you know, you've opened something and it's too late. So I guess with what the insurance company is wanting us to do to even continue this policy, it's something that we maybe need to be looking at, if nothing else on a smaller scale, if we decide that we just can't go with the full amount.
Yeah, so there's two separate decisions here. There's a financial decision and a policy decision. The financial decision, so we've had this coverage in place. It's for $1 million of protection with up to $500,000, if I remember right, per incident, I think.
Right.
Was
Yeah, that's kind of broken up into weird sections.
$1 million
It's kind of like a
act,
regular
something like that. So it's what we
policy.
pay. Having said that, it's really a belt and suspenders strategy that the county's employed, because we have, double redundancy, double backup on all of our data. They would have, hackers would have to get into 3 separate systems to truly have us incapable of getting our own data. So part of the question is do we self-insure, in a sense of saying, we've invested in all these backup and protective measures, we feel like we've done enough, we don't need to have that insurance coverage? Or do we want to have the insurance coverage as that extra layer of security in the event that, and I'm not naive enough to think there's not some Russian hacker that couldn't get into all 3. I mean, I recognize that. So we would want that in place. So they're not changing the cost of the insurance itself. They're just saying for us to be eligible to purchase the insurance, we've got to do these things that will cost $36,000 to do.
Does this just cover the courthouse only?
No, it's a county,
That would be
countywide.
all county, all county offices.
So the decision on whether or not to implement the security measures, the multi-factor identification, to renew the policy, those are policy decisions that are the commissioner's decision. That's not us. But what the commissioners need to know is if they say we need to do these things, will the council fund it? So that's our decision today, is do we, we don't have anything specific to say yes or no to. What I want is a council consensus vote that yes, we will find the $36,000 for the security of our data. And then leave it to the commissioners to decide on the best course of action on how to implement that. To me, we have to.
Yeah, we're seeing it in our small business. It's money I don't want to spend, and this is a bigger scale than
Oh,
what
yeah.
we do.
Basically, this is buying an insurance policy to your insurance policy.
Absolutely.
It is,
That's
yeah.
right, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Tim and I talked about this, let's say that our defense mechanisms work and we go 10 years without an incident and we paid $360,000. It's like we paid the ransom without ever having the ransom, But it's, I don't know, it's, I feel like we have to.
And I guess if we don't do something, a ransom attack could be anywhere in $500,000 to pay out to even get a decrypt key. I mean, they can get pretty salty depending on who they know they attacked and what they feel your funding level can be to try to get your information back. I don't want to say this, but we have been hit once, and nobody really knew about it because it got caught in a quick enough amount of time. We had it recovered from the backup within a few hours. Office went back to functioning as normal, and nobody really knew anything had happened. So, I try to get us in a good position that we can try to mitigate these things on our own, but you never know. The next one can come out, and with this day and age and the amount of data that we have to protect on our systems, you can't do what's basically considered a disconnected backup. So basically that would be something that nothing can get to because it's not attached to any system. So you'd always have a way to go back to recover your stuff. In this day and age, when you're backing up 20 terabytes worth of data, that just can't exist. I mean, your volume of data just is too great to come to a disconnected state. I mean, even if you look at an offsite solution, I mean, they might not be directly into your system, but it's on the internet. And, everybody loves to attack whatever they can, so, you're at the mercy of whatever the attacker does.
So Tim, with everything that the insurance company is recommending, do you kind of agree with everything that they are saying?
With the way things are going, I do believe that there should be some of this protection in place. The bad thing is to even cover our email, we're at the mercy of whatever this is going to cost just to protect our email, even if we're not going after the systems. The system, if we separate that out, that's not really changing our cost, because this cost is per user per account. So when we're looking at, our email, and I've started talking to some of the offices to try to figure out where some of this extra accounts have come from. Is there ways that we can trim it so we can get the number down? We've got to protect the email one way or another, and that seems to be where everybody's going towards, trying to make sure that, because most of the attacks come from, saying Clark's email gets hacked and somebody starts sending an email out at it. Your first thought is, well, Clark sent me something, I should open this attachment, and, we're in potential danger from that happening. So I get why we're going after the email, and it's something that the industry is moving towards, that, we need to start looking at better ways to protect ourselves just from, these people that are trying to do illegitimate stuff.
So just to help me more. So, the money is for hardware or something? It's things that are gonna go,
Right now, this
Your
money is
system?
literally towards just buying a piece of software.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Is it a one-time purchase or their annual maintenance or?
It's
monthly fee.
basically, this is a monthly service fee that we gotta pay.
Okay, so
If we've gotta buy
ongoing
hardware
expense.
tokens, that's a
New-
one-time
new addition
cost.
to the budget. It'll be a new line item ongoing, yeah.
Yeah. The hardware tokens would be a one-time purchase unless we have a device fail or somebody breaks it or something like that. But the actual service that we're paying for is a monthly fee.
You say that's $36,000 a year, so about $3,000 a month.
Yep.
One of the things that Tim and I talked about is that, and it would require some investment in Tim's time, but was that we think there could be a reduction in those number of emails with a thorough review of where they may be.
Surely
they
there
may-
gotta be some.
Well, they're tied to
Deleted
iPads,
or
they're
something.
tied to iPads.
Yeah.
that Maybe a department has that maybe not are in use, or they're tied to copiers and printers and things that.
Yeah,
that
well,
aren't
there'll be a
actively-
few accounts like copiers, we
Yeah.
use copiers to send, scan documents to email, things like that. There'll be some extra fluff accounts that we've got to cover just to protect them. But hopefully it's not in the realm of almost 200. So, I know one of the places I've contacted already was EMA because they have a lot of the iPads with email accounts in case we have an emergency. And just trying to find out, are we even still doing that? That was something we put in place 7 years ago. Have they changed in their policy and those accounts don't need to still be existing? So, it's just trying to work through what doesn't need to be there and trimming out some of those almost 200 extra accounts that don't need to be existing anymore. So we can get that number down. It might not have to stay at that 36. If we can get more towards 400, we'll knock off, what is that? About $600 a month.
Yeah.
If we can knock out 100 accounts.
Okay.
I don't think we have a choice.
I don't either.
We have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the money that we've been assigned to oversee, and hindsight could be very ugly to deal with if we didn't do something like
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to say, we're in a perfect state and we don't need to worry about it, but it takes one attack before you're in
I keep
trouble.
getting more and more ugly looking emails, and I just, honestly, I don't open anything unless
Yep.
first of all, it's gotta be from somebody that I know, or like AIC or something like that. This other stuff, now the current ones I get, a lot of them will say potential spam. I just delete,
Yep.
delete. And in worst case scenario, if it was something I was supposed to read, well, eventually
More
they'll
than likely
get
they'll
back.
call you.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what I'd like to have then is we don't have a specific dollar figure yet because we don't know how many emails the final number would be and those kinds of things. What I would like is an email expressing the council's intent to support whatever the commissioners decide to do with regard to, that we will financially support the direction the commissioners decide to go with this cybersecurity.
kind of based on $36,000.
But I hate to tie a number to it
Yeah,
because we don't
okay.
know when the final analysis is done.
And the sad thing is, to cover 319 employees, if we gotta buy hardware tokens, that could be almost $20,000 too. But that would be a one-time purchase.
Well, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
So a motion by Jeff and a second by Jake,
We don't have a choice.
that the council is in favor of supporting and continued investment in cybersecurity measures. And to be left to the commissioners to decide the most effective way to implement that policy.
Very good.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Tim, thank you for your
Thanks,
work on
Tim.
that and your update.
All right, thanks.
Oops, sorry about that. Okay, that moves us on to additional appropriations. Most of what we have for this month are the kind of the cleanup items from last summer's budget discussions. You'll recall that if a item at that time is not advertised as part of the original budget submission, and we decide to make a change and add something, that we have to kind of carry it forward and do an additional appropriation here in January. So we have a few of those kinds of items here today. Beginning with the general fund. you'll recall, made an adjustment. This was not actually during the budget process, but subsequent to the budget process, we made some adjustments to the courthouse custodian. We made it more of a maintenance position rather than just simply a custodian, and so we added a little to the salary, $2,704 for that one. And we also added a part-time line item to assist in that task, so $800 we put in there for some additional help. We received a $100 donation from Susan Casper to go towards our EMA training facility, so we're going to appropriate that to the appropriate line item. Thank you to Susan for that. The prosecutor is asking for $20,000 for a special legal services line item related to the ongoing death penalty case. We're expecting that. I think it's going to dribble in, over time with these kinds of requests, but this is the first $20,000 request. You'll recall at budget time, we had a $5,000 line item in two different places. I want to say one of them was in Ray's budget and the clerk, and then one was in the commissioners for Maximus. And we, at the time, thought they were duplicates, and we removed the one from the commissioner's budget. It turns out they're not duplicates, and so we needed to reinstall. They're for different contractual services, so we're putting the $5,000 back into the commissioner's budget to pay that Maximus bill that will come later this year. And thanks to Jerry for catching that. The next one requires a little bit of an explanation. So there's two items that go together, one from Circuit Court and one from Superior Court. One's for $16,368, the other's for $11,000 some, if I remember, $10,000 some.
Yeah,
Somewhere in that, it's
10-9.
yeah, okay. And it's for an update to the recording software in the court system. Our software is so old that it is no longer supported. We have issues with it. It needs to be fixed immediately. The courts, their original intent and request to Britt and I was that they were going to try to encumber the money out of unused funds from the 2021 budget. That's what you see in all of those following pages. That was their original request of where they were going to pay for this from funds that they had left over. Unfortunately, we did not yet have a contract or an invoice, which is what's required to reach back into a previous year's budget. So what Britt and I instructed them to do was to go ahead and we'll let that money roll back into the cash balance at the end of the year, and we would appropriate the funds here in 2022. So that's what they've done, but we went ahead and included what they had originally suggested, because I wanted you to see that we're essentially paying this out of last year's budget, if not officially paying for it out of last year's budget. So $16,368 from Circuit Court and $11,468 from Superior Court for recording software and equipment. And then the last one, going back to the budget that relates to County General, when we went through the process, we discovered, and it's because it was a new payment for this year, but we had not included one of the debt service payments for the bonds related to the I-65 State Road 28 project. So we are advertising that one was the $227,500. We had talked about it, but it didn't get advertised at the time. So this fixes that error. We had that all, just to be clear, that was all included in our calculations when we did the budget discussion. This is just catching up the official action. Moving to CEDAT. CEDAT, there's a request for $731,187. This goes back to that payoff of the bond anticipation notes that I referenced earlier in the ARP discussion. That represents the difference between our $3 million EDA grant and the amount of the grant funds we've received so far. We are still owed $731,187, and we were counting on those funds to pay off the short-term bond anticipation notes. So we have two sources. We've got the grant, and we've got the long-term bonds that we issued in August. So those two together total the amount of money we need to pay off the short-term notes that we used to initially fund the project. So we got an email yesterday that we think the bond closeout, or I'm sorry, the grant closeout could happen, hopefully, fingers crossed, by the end of February. So this would be a short-term loan. We get those funds from the federal government, we'll reimburse CEDAT and move on down the road. But for now, we have to pay those bond anticipation notes here at the end of the week, and so this puts that money in place to do it.
Where does this one go?
This is the last, so if you look on the county general, the number was 255,000.
Yeah.
So this is, oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking about, you're different.
This is the one that Janet handed us.
Okay, the 227, that goes back to, that's that debt service payment. That's for the long-term bonds. So we issued two
Sorry.
sets of bonds. Water bonds, sewer bonds.
Oh,
So one of them, we had payments starting this year, the one that we issued in 2020. We've got payments in 2022. That's what we covered there.
Sewer, the wastewater, okay. Gotcha.
Remember how we did those parallel? We did a water project and we did the wastewater project?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. I
No.
want you to be clear and
No, yeah.
understand what was going. There's a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah, so we just addressed that then?
Yes,
Okay.
that was in the county
Very good.
general.
Very good.
Yeah. Parkview Home, their gifts funds, they received $100 for gifts for the residents, and so we're appropriating that to that fund. Adult probation, when Nancy submitted the probation salaries, those are set, those were set without the 4% raise, so this includes this is putting the 4% raise for those employees that they were awarded. From the federal inmate program, we had several items that at the budget time we moved to that fund, beginning with $16,000 for the investigative assistant position that was created. This was not one at budget time, but that was kind of in the discussions at budget time. We didn't know any specific numbers then, but that's $4,000 for the jail feasibility study, and actually, let me do it in reverse. $9,015 for the jail assessment. That was the RQAW work that was done, that we had the meeting about and reviewed all of those, that report. That was subsequently followed up with, the commissioners engaged them to do a feasibility study, and that was where we were to really look at our options, from building a new jail to which components it made sense and were most urgent to replace. That's $4,000 coming out of that fund. $100,000, we moved the sheriff's service agreement from the, I can't remember if that was the sheriff's budget or the jail budget. I believe it was in the sheriff's budget that we had moved to federal inmate. And then the body cameras, we authorized $67,500. That's an installment payment. If I recall, that was a $300 and some thousand contract that we were going to pay for over 4 or 5 years, and this is the installment payment for the body cameras. Health Department, $2,000. We received some additional grant funding for staff, so this puts that money in place for use for Rodney. Probation, $808. This is a carryover from some grant funding that we're moving, so it went back into a cash balance. We're appropriating it out for use in 2022. $100,000 from Superior Court. Judge Hunter's asking for that money from the Public Defender Fund, and that's for his needs relating to the capital murder case. So the costs are beginning to add up. This is not a prediction that we'll use $100,000. This is putting a $100,000 line item in place for him to access as needed throughout the year. And that is the entirety of the additional appropriations. By Jake, do I have a second? Second by Mike to approve that slate of additional appropriations. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. We do have, let's see, a couple of, it's like 2 approvals for transfers. From the Health Department, $2,500 from one nurse manager position to another nurse manager position. And then, in Superior Court, $706 from part-time court reporter to criminal court reporter. Is it just those two? Am I right, Janet? Okay.
Motion to approve?
Okay, motion to approve by Jeff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Clark. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. As always, we get from the auditor the monthly financial statement that details all of the fund balances. I'd like, if
I have looked it over.
entertain a motion that we've received that.
I will make a motion, we've received it.
Okay. I have a motion by Jeff, second by Mike, that we have received and will Make sure that gets included in the minutes. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, commissioner report. We have 2 commissioners with us today. Anything additional you'd like to share?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Couple quick updates. Next Tuesday at our meeting, we should receive the bids back for the 3rd floor renovation. So I'd mentioned that kind of at the year-end meeting, and so we should be opening those next Tuesday. As well as the bids for the fairground project, we should open those on February 14th. So
Okay,
just
good.
wanted to kind of give you guys an update on some of those larger projects that we have in the works, when the bids would be coming back. The last thing I want to mention is we were able to get signed up. The state is involved in this national opioid settlement. And so since we did not file our own separately, we were allowed to work with the Indiana Attorney General and piggyback with the state. And so we got signed up for that settlement. And they couldn't give me an exact figure. We find out in July, but that could be roughly $100,000 or more that we would receive of unrestricted money based on this settlement. And then there's a whole other pot available for the opioid crisis specifically and specific things, and they couldn't tell me that number as well yet because it's just too early. But I just wanted to kind of update you guys that there's some things in the works that others have mentioned in terms of mental health and drug issues we have going on in the community that we're trying to get involved with from the state and the national level to hopefully provide some solutions. So
Okay, great.
that's all I have.
Any questions for Jordan?
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jordan. Department heads, any department heads need time with the council?
More than once at a time. However, I did want to at least briefly get you some verbal reporting out. I don't think your closeout meetings, I was on vacation.
Well deserved.
Well, thank you. Still very pressed, though. Testing's still very robust in the county, and I had to take a little of my time back out to go back and help our gals. But one thing I did bring was a email that I shared with Alan and with Britt. We are still recovering money from administration fees for vaccines, and we will still be doing so, as we are obviously still doing vaccines. And we're working with Britt's office and have tried to all along from the beginning on this. And there was question on treatment of the money and where it should be put, and comments from the state on both sides of the coin in several different times. So I wanted to share with you the final word, as I told Alan and Britt, on what the state, in the state we say, this case being the State Department of Health, the SBOA, the State Board of Accounts, and DGLF, the Division of Local Government and Finance, tried to get them all on the same page to at least have guidance that made sense to the auditors of the county, the council members, and then the recipients of the money itself. So this is just a final inclusion on how that money should be treated as far as what fund it goes into. I know Alan and I are very creative individuals. We kicked around many an idea while we were thinking about it, but we did want to follow what was Britt's guidance as well. So we had patience and we waited until we got everyone's consensus on it. So I was very vested in making sure it wasn't going to set us back when I talk about the DGLF and the tax levies and the impact of, in Alan and I's idea, cash on hand when you get to a certain point during the year. So that's why this was all brought up. That's why I made a special reach out to the state early on when this money started becoming available to say, we need some additional guidance. I happen to have at least some contacts still left in the State Department of Health after being there for several years. So that is that information. Certainly, if you have any questions, you can email myself or Britt on it, but definitely I think her and I feel we're in good standing with what we can now put into the money. I anticipate more still to come in. With that said, we finished up, I think, as strong a year as we've ever had both from the tax levy cash balance standpoint as well as this additional, at least now 160,000 that has went in. As it's stated in there, this is a one-time situation most likely, and it's an opportunity for one-time investments and one-time costs on things that can build the capabilities of the public health response in the community for the future. So I'm going to be working with our board for guidance, as well as my health officer, and again, still with the council and the auditor to determine what's the best use of this money going forward. So from a standpoint of financials, otherwise, like I say, the tax levy was strong this year. I think they more than made up for the 21,000 that we were short last year through those last two tax levies. We had 2 state grants that I'll get you a final report on most likely in February. I'd like to do those in January, but we're just so behind on getting all of our paperwork ready. But we did utilize a little more of those dollars this year during the COVID situation for additional part-time staff. I shared numbers with the commissioners meeting last, which were that as of probably this week, we are having conducted probably somewhere around 110,000 COVID tests during this, since the pandemic has began. That's representative of about 25,500 county residents. This is still ongoing. My hope was that we wouldn't have much of a need for testing by this point in time, but unfortunately, we're seeing an uptick in demand that's unprecedented right now. We have had 2 grants for 100,000 each to help support that testing. The first 100,000 was already expended somewhere short of September of this year, and we are into, I would say, about another 40,000 that we've spent so far on this second year of testing. That employs about 5 part-time temporary employees working about 30 hours a week is what that clinic's open and running right now. I've told the state we need more money if we're going to expand because we're pretty well maxed out with what staffing-wise we can afford right now. We additionally had about $48,000 that was made available this last year for vaccine support. And we have expended, I would say, a majority of that, about 38 or so of that dollars already. There could be opportunity for more to come down the pike, but right now, most of what we do is ran by our staff and by a few volunteers. We have 1 or 2 part-time paid positions that help keep the flow of volunteers and nursing ability in the county during those clinics. So we're still seeing people get vaccines, but it unfortunately is going this direction while testing is going this direction. So it's a big balance. As I told the commissioners and mentioned as they did, that there's legislation that's currently in the balance that we don't know what the outcome will be. One of those is if there's any mandates at all for vaccines, and I'm not proposing that at all, but what it will do is increase the demand for testing. And whether I say I don't want to have private industry affecting public county testing or not, it will have some impact regardless because it's a public site and I can't close it. So we're already trying to plan for those problems. One of the problems with that is finding a space to do additional testing. We're doing a drive-through right now, and to do additional, the state would require us to have indoor facilities. And we all know what we've struggled with in the past for that as well. So, but in planning terms, if legislation goes that direction, then we may have to consider that as well. So, other than that, we continue to fight the fight. We continue to try to use our dollars wisely, as Britt has helped us to do. It's been a tremendous challenge because, as I said, I think we've managed about 3 times our normal budget this year, somewhere close to about $750,000 in both, normal grant monies, additional grant monies in our budget. So, but other than that, that's my at least verbal report to you folks today. If there's any questions you have at all.
I just want to point out, so if you look at the second page of that letter that Rodney passed out, third paragraph down is the key thing that would relate to us and the discussion that we had. That was kind of the key point and the ongoing point. Additionally, insurance reimbursement funds for vaccine administration should be treated as payment for services and deposited in the health fund, which is non-reverting. Here's the important line. The Department of Local Government Finance and the State Board of Accounts have confirmed these do not automatically impact levies. Our fear was that if we put that money in there, they would just cut his tax rate, and we would end up with no additional funding because they would offset one with
And
the
it's
other.
not just a fear. If you go back to 2010, 2011, when we got a bulk of money, grant money for H1N1, and it was put into the 1159 budget, if you look the next 3 levy periods, we got 0 money out of those 3. But that was grant money. Maybe SBOA is looking at this differently, and we're going to learn.
Imagine they learned.
I'm hoping that we have. So that was my concern. It wasn't just
The key is they're not treating it as a grant, it's a
Right.
payment for service.
Right.
And
So we're hoping that we'll
Just
keep
below that, it says payments are supplemental to tax revenues and therefore need to be appropriated, so Rodney would come to us as normal. This will require council action and DLGF approval as with any appropriation. So in other words, it goes in there, it's used as normal funding. And then the last line can be used to support activities of the local health department. So it's money that's going into his account. We can't buy a highway truck with it. It's got to be used, it's got to be used on health activities. So this was very helpful. It really cleared up the rules of what could be done and where that money should go.
Well, and as you noted, it wasn't just helpful for us, it was helpful for other small counties and medium-sized counties like us who are dealing with the same issues that we are right now. So, like I say at the beginning, I want to have a few more short years to hopefully lead this proud ship, but we worked very hard to get ourselves back financially sound, and I certainly was very concerned that something like this might throw us off. It wasn't that I was just unfoundedly feared of it. I had actually seen historical reasons to worry about it. But again, I thank Britt and her office for working with us, for the council's cooperation and support through all this. And I hope that maybe by this time next year, I'll be standing here telling you wrap-up figures and that we're all done with this.
Yeah, let's hope.
Rodney, what's the correlation between the mandatory vaccine versus the testing?
Well,
You said going up.
excellent question. So what you'll see here is what has been proposed is if you're not vaccinated and you're going to mandate every employer, 100 employees or more, has to vaccinate or offer weekly testing. And that's going to be the catch. So any of their employees who some reason or another either choose not to get vaccinated for a medical reason or some other idea and get that approval, they're going to be required to be tested regularly. And that'll fall upon every community's normal testing sites. One of the problems right now you may or may not be aware of is any partners that we have that are testing in the county right now would be your drugstores that have rapid testing, and lo and behold, there's no rapid tests to be found right now. So that's a big concern. That immediately puts a dent. And until rapid testing results are more widely accepted, in some cases, they don't even count anyway. So.
Is there a correlation between the testing and financial income to the county or the state? Because I received the reason I asked, because I received an email from the state, and it was like, we invite you to be tested or vaccinated. And I mean, I'm perfectly healthy. Why would they be inviting me to be tested?
Well, and again,
especially if they're having a problem
Sure.
right now with.
From the county level, we're not currently getting any incentive to do tests, not per the tests. We're getting funding to somehow pull off the miracle. Either it be by, in our case, we're hiring additional staff with what little money they have. Again, $100,000, I'm surprised in a year's time doesn't go a very long way when you're paying 30-hour a week to several individuals. You have to have, we only have 2 people there. They're doing 120 people in a 6-hour period right now. That's 18 to 20 people an hour. It's still drive-through, and it's very severe conditions out there right now in some days. It's raining, or it's icy, or it's wind chill of 10 below. So, but we're at capacity. Right now, we're not getting a per test amount. We're simply getting grant money to perform it. My ability to expand is either they give us more money to hire additional staff, or I bring in a strike team. Strike teams are requiring that you have an indoor space with bathrooms and space to social distance, and rightly so. There are different challenges per either one of those models, but testing will go up if there's any type of vaccine mandate, because the businesses will have to offer weekly testing options. And even though that's not what our public testing site's for, we will feel the impact, at least initially, until there's some sort of equalization between people who are out there that can offer the private industry their own. And we are looking into that as well. So Dana has been looking into that with some Lafayette companies that might offer additional testing to our industries, because they're already asking. So it's a matter of continuity of operations for them right now. Because as the gals said there earlier that were here, we're still being impacted with people being out, so.
I'm sorry. Rodney, so with this reimbursement money, is your staff billing every insurance company for?
We bill
Or
every.
is it pretty rapid? They made it pretty quick to
What it
do
is,
this.
yeah, well, what it is, it's built into the computer system that we're using to do all the registration. And the state has contracted with a third-party biller to
Okay.
do so on behalf of all the local healths. There's a $3 per person fee for doing it, which that's for everything in this world. But they are then lumping those in for health departments and processing that all for
Very
us,
good.
so.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and it's every type of insurance you can think of, including private, public, Medicare, Medicaid, and those other sources of funding that might be out there. So they're reaching in every different direction, so.
Very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Sheriff Kelly.
Sheriff Kelly, just real quick, annual commissary report, final report, you'll have it at your next meeting. Our records clerk has been on vacation, and she'll get those reconciled probably within the next few days to next week, and we'll get that to you and at your next meeting. Another thing on Rodney, thank you. I mean, he's come in and vaccinated our inmates and helped us out and on some quick notice things, and within a few days we have his nurse over and getting it done. So on the other side of, everything that we have to take on there at the sheriff's office of keeping the COVID virus out of the building, things like that, our workers do get affected by it. I won't talk about the bonuses or anything like that. We'll let that run its course. But I do think every county employee is well deserving, especially the ones that were obligated to work and could not work from home. So that's all I'll say. On the federal inmate fund, I think we'll talk to Mr. Brewer, and we're going to, reopen some more conversation in regards to where we're going with all these assessments and what the best thing is going to be for the future. So just more conversation and, and the payments out of it, just email, and I know the authority, and I do appreciate the conversation if you can get that to me prior, because we watch that fund as well and make sure that, we are where we need to be and what's coming out and things like that. So I would appreciate that conversation.
How are your numbers with the
Very
program?
good.
I mean,
I'll ask the 60.
Okay.
We've been holding 60 for quite a while.
Okay.
We just received notification that DOC is gonna start keeping level 6 or taking level 6 out of the building, which opens up more beds, a little more beds. That's affecting us.
how often or when do you get a chance to, I'll use the term renegotiate, I'm not sure if that's the right term, but.
It is.
Reassess, okay, 3 years, reassess the cost figure?
Absolutely, every 3 years. And, so with that, we're holding strong with the number of people we have. And if you have any more financial, please ask Ashley.
No, that was the question. I wanted to know if it was an annual
Our
thing.
December billing for, I know I don't send those emails to you, but I send them to Janet and to the treasurer. Our annual billing numbers, I can put a report together if you want to see it. I mean, we know what's come in. December fell just over $135,000. A lot, 10,000 of that was medical transport because we did have a fed that it was not COVID, it was pneumonia. And we asked for the marshals to help us in assistance because, of course, we were going through our bout of COVID on our own. So we asked for Region 9 to come in and assist us. They are paid direct by the feds. We do not pay them. It's their third-party vendor for security. to help us out. So in December, we had 125,000 plus for housing, and we had over 10,000 for transport, and most of that was medical.
Okay, thank you.
That's it? Ready
Yeah.
for
Well,
22?
I'm sorry. So I just wanted to ask, so Brett, when you said that you saved DOC $812,000, I was just kind of wondering, does that somehow hurt the local jail or anything, or is it just two different things?
No, I mean, I think in the end it washes out, because if
Okay.
he's holding more people on his program, we as a community, or you and our fiscal body, we gain from that. And, you know, and the grants and things like that in the future, it kind of shows that, you know, Clinton County can have people on, you know, the programs and on community corrections that, you know, they can be held there instead. And the change in Department of Corrections holding more level sixes, that alleviates some of the burden of overcrowding. And I think it's not in Clinton County, but across the board, across the state, what sheriffs talk about is the overcrowding of their facilities. And having to hold those level sixes increase their populations. We are very good here in Clinton County, staying under the, you know, the number of beds, and we have, and we're not overpopulated. So it's one of those things where I think that program through DOC was created to help alleviate some of the overcrowding in these other facilities. So, and with that, they get pushed to community corrections. We can still hold them, I do believe, if we have room or choose to.
Yeah, the conversation is if DOC has taken our level six, right now we get paid separately for level six and county parole holds that are outside of that DOC annual number that used to come monthly. It's 419,000, 418,000. We get paid in addition to that, and it was almost $100,000 last year, I believe, to hold level six felons and our county felon, our parole holds, et cetera. So what it does is programs like CTP, it opens up a bed space because we're taking it back into our community, into programs like CTP, and it opens up bed space at DOC. So now DOC has authorized the overcrowding. Just to be clear, Clinton County is not overcrowded, but if they take some of our level sixes as well, then that in turn will open up more bed space that we could utilize for other programs.
Very good.
The
Thank you.
number I projected was for level fives and higher, for automatically posted.
Yes.
The state has to take them this year.
You learn a lot when you ask a simple question. It's
Absolutely.
very in-depth.
I don't know what the
Thank you
county
so much.
per
Yeah.
inmate, but the state actually went down last year, it's down to 5260.
In our county's 3750, whereas the federal inmates, we're looking at 68 a day.
Yeah.
And I do anticipate on raising that, providing I'm still here. We will renegotiate that number. I'm looking more at 75 because we've been very reasonable in our dealings with the federal government, and we take a lot of the burden off of them as far as transporting and picking up. We'll go to prisons and pick up inmates for them and transport them on their behalf. We get reimbursed for that, but we're also bringing them back to our facility.
Yeah, now you kind of know where your costs are and everything, so yeah. that's-
Yeah, the
that's
thing
right.
that popped into my mind is you're starting a new calendar year with 4% higher salaries, you know, for those people administering the program. So that's what made me wonder whether or not, when we got a chance to revisit that.
Year 3.
It's every 36 months.
Okay.
But as proficient, and I say proficient, I can't say enough about the jail staff. I can't say enough about what Ashley has done with the program and working with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. But it is something that we're pretty darn good at it, and and that doesn't happen unless you have great staff. And you know, and I appreciate council and I appreciate the commissioners, the additional jail staff that we've been able to pick up over the last year, and then stepping into this year. So it does make a difference. And you know, so I still am a firm believer that facility should generate revenue for our community, should generate revenue that alleviates a lot of other things. So appreciate all the cooperation. And
My last question, did we get all the first batch of vehicles? Are they all in?
they are all in. We got one more waiting on a dog cage, and just like everybody, and I hate to say dog cage, it's a kennel insert, and we're kind of waiting on radios from Motorola to put in there, and you know, we're on that. They're still out in the Bay of
Just
San
on the one?
Francisco and up in Michigan. I don't know.
So we're
No,
just down
we
the-
got 2
Okay.
that are left to be done, and we're on the list for the next round of vehicles. But I couldn't even take a guess of when those vehicles would start arriving with the way the manufacturing and distribution is right now.
I've just seen the first few out on the road. They look nice.
Yeah, they look fantastic. And one of the biggest things about it is those vehicles are, I think we'll get more miles out of them. I think we'll get more use out of them. I think, that in the future, they'll be able to be kept within the agency and pushed down to, different places and used in even other agencies within the county. So,
Great.
fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Before he puts steps away, he's a modest man, but I want to make it clear to everybody, including the commissioners that are here, we just recently had to talk with the media about the outbreak at the jail. And I wanted to make it clear because it was made clear through the interview that I was talking to the WLFI folks. The sheriff's done an excellent job in trying to keep COVID out of that since the very beginning of this. He's working collaboratively with his staff, his resources, and our staff to do testing early on, to do any type of offering of vaccinations. I know the state's been there 1 or 2 times as well as we just came in response to the issues there. He's working with a population that's very difficult because they're not always necessarily forthcoming. A lot of us who deal with COVID folks end up dealing with them for a short period of time and then they go back to wherever they came from, and his is not that luxury. He was on the list of top 4 facilities that the State Department of Health asked us early on to help with, that meaning hospitals, jails and DOC facilities, schools and long-term cares, and he's done an excellent job in doing that. The WLFI interviewer made it clear that many of the other county jails in the state of Indiana had several outbreaks, and this was our first.
We had, I think, a total of 19 inmates, and this literally was December. I mean, and I don't know if it's a new variant. I don't know what it was, but we got hit. And then you have to take those 17 to 19 people, isolate them away, and keep 160 plus inmates healthy. So, and our staff. So we ended up, we had some people on staff that got the virus, and then, but the 17 to 19 people, it took us about 2 weeks, and then we were back down to 0 cases in the facility. And prior to that, we had no cases from the onset out. So the protocols and the measures that we put in is not only just for our inmates, but it is for our staff. So I mean, those guys they've worn PPE from day one. Our jail staff wears PPE back there, and it's not easy. And I mean, I don't like wearing a mask, and it's hard. It's hard on them. So they're spending 12 hours, and probably 6.5 of that they are in their mask, unless they're in another area without anybody else, so they can take them down. So with that, I appreciate it, Ron. We bring in the state quarterly. Their strike force will contact us, and vaccinations of all kind. I mean, and the coronavirus too, or COVID-19 virus as well, but all vaccinations. So we work hand in hand with the health department here and with the state level, just to make sure that we offer everything that these inmates can get, and that way when they come out, they're healthy and vaccinated. But thanks.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other department heads? I see we have a few in the room. Anybody else need time with the council? Any other business that a council member likes to bring before the council?
I joined the Purdue Extension Network Board,
Oh, good.
so be able to maybe
Be a
follow up
liaison.
liaison
for it,
with them too. So I know it wasn't a council appointment.
Does that mean I'm not
He
on?
didn't come before.
I don't know, but Karen.
I'll call Karen.
Yeah, Karen Krebs is being led by contact with her, and there we are.
Very good.
Good job.
All
What
right.
about some kind of recognition for Ron?
I think that would be appropriate.
We,
Okay.
we can't just let him drift away
Yeah, I
without
agree. Thanks, Clark.
acknowledging his
Thank you.
dedication.
Yeah.
Did you have something in mind?
No, I don't, but, I mean, I'm not good at that, but
Yeah. We'll do something.
I think we should.
Yeah. We'd done something in the past for other members, Steve Fry and Steve Woods, so that's appropriate.
And ask him to come in and present something to him.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe we can do that in February.
Yeah.
Okay.